Welcome to another episode of the Dibbly Dobblers Cricket Podcast, and as always, I am your main host, Callum, and as always, I'm joined by the wonderful secondary host, director, producer, and dinner lady, Andrew. How's it going?
As always, it's going all right.
Well, I mean, I added wonderful.
As always.
What,
As always.
You think you're wonderful always?
No, I think, see when we get t-shirts made up, I think you should just have as always written on it, because that's how you always open the episodes.
As always?
As
well,
always.
How else would you like me to open the episodes?
Just hello does.
Hello.
It's me.
You're looking for. So thanks to everyone for joining us again for another episode.
As always.
Well, come on now. There's no need to be silly, Andrew.
Sorry. Delirious.
That's because it's currently 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
So we kind of rabbit holed a bit before recording this episode, and we have pre-recorded an interview this evening. So
another one, so yes.
As
exciting
always,
stuff.
An interview.
Not as always, but we hope it will become as
Well,
always,
as
actually.
always.
Yeah, so
Okay.
fair. Yeah.
Right. Well, excellent.
Let's put that chat in a box and put the as always away for now.
I mean, I hate to say that you did start it, but so we, for our interview, we spoke to Peter Drummond from Meigle Cricket Club. I had a total mind blank there. It is 10:30 at night, as I say. Peter Drummond from Meigle Cricket Club. So over to speak to Pete.
Hi, Pete. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, not too bad. Yourselves?
Yeah, doing grand.
Apparently, you can hear me at least, so that's good.
Maybe.
Yeah, right. So we'll start off. Meigle Cricket Club. Can you tell us about the state of the club at the moment? Obviously, we've been through a weird couple of years. How has the club come through that?
Yeah, well, come through it. Probably current state of affairs were as strong as we've ever been. I would say, probably number-wise and strength-wise, up to two genuine Saturday teams, which we've never really had. And they'll obviously be. Well, we've got a pro and an amateur coming over this year, who were meant to come over in 2020. So that'll make even the second team stronger again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, plenty on that front. Just maybe, I suppose, with the COVID, obviously, bit disappointing for ourselves having been up to the EPL for the season that was meant to be, and obviously not quite having turning up at big grounds with no one there, not even your own supporters and things like that as well. Was
yeah.
Bit disappointing, you know what I mean? Not quite what it could have been. So yeah, disappointing not to stay up. We were close, but just not quite close enough, unfortunately. Because it would have been good to have used last year's experience, I think, to kick on this year up at that level.
Yeah, and I suppose having not been able to have a pro or an amateur, I know obviously in your promotion run, Raju, both with the bat and the ball, played quite a significant part. And obviously you just still needed homegrown players to chip in, but not having the ability to have those guys, I'm sure didn't. I know most teams didn't have any overseas players, but I suppose a club like Meigle don't perhaps have the dearth of talent that a Grange has or clubs like that. So I suppose that was a big miss.
Yeah, probably, as you said, the league almost split into two leagues when you see it. There was the top guys who have sort of history of not having to rely on pros, and they were obviously a lot stronger with teams at the bottom who maybe lean a bit more on their pro, not having a pro. But as you said, Callum, the opposition teams didn't have their pro, so probably just the makeup of our team was probably a bit more stronger in the bowling department anyway.
Yeah.
So I've always relied a bit on the pro for runs in the past, so that was where we were found wanting a wee bit, and that's the way it goes.
Still a fantastic achievement for the club, though, even to get there, I suppose. So.
Yeah, exactly. Had a few good performances. Had Force and a bit of bother at their place, and Herets was a bit of bother at Meigle for a while. But as you said, just the strength and depth of those teams put on sort of big 7th, 8th wicket partnerships that took it a wee bit beyond us, and then not able to score big enough runs from our side of things was where it was against us, really.
And is there still sort of quite a buoyant atmosphere around the club? You know, obviously it could be easy.
Yeah. At the time, obviously it was a sickener, and we took it a bit of getting over. But no, I mean, well, obviously up until last season, it was the longest pre-season we've ever had. It was like a 2.5 year pre-season or whatever, year and a half pre-season. So we were maybe a bit jaded from that, obviously not wanting to do that. And we went back to, we've just had a month's indoors through basically from the very start of March. And then we'll obviously lead into a month's outdoors, and that's fine. I think that's helped, you know what I mean? It's not drawing it out. You're not sitting there thinking about last season's issues and disappointments. You're fully focused going forward for the season ahead. You know what I mean?
Clear headspace, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Not overthinking it. Bang! By the time you've done a month, you've got rid of the rust, rid of the cobwebs, and you're ready to go. The weather certainly helps as well. Get you sort of cheery mood, looking forward, waiting to get outside.
Absolutely. Good. So, as you've mentioned, you're starting to prepare for the 2022 season. So, on the field, what's the ambitions for this year?
I don't know. Just be really as obviously finish as high as you can. I suppose naturally being the team that comes down, you probably looked at the team that's wanting to bounce back and get back up there. That'll be the ambition, I would think, personally, from within us all. But you forget it's what in 2019 was the last year we played in the Strathmore Union. A lot changes in cricket in three years. You know what I'm saying? So be no doubt, I'm sure, new faces and new opposition players and that we've not come up against. So they'll prove big challenges. You've got, I mean, big clubs, Aberdeenshire and that down there. It's probably as strong as Strathmore Union as I've ever seen. So yeah, it'll be tough games every week.
Big league as well. We've got a slightly
and expanded
doing it, but
I don't know. I think by just not having relegation last year, saying that they kind of made a rod for it. But I mean, I was at the AGM Zoom meeting and that no one was. Everyone seemed quite happy with the format, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So well, reasonably, there was no dissenters, shall we say, at it. So I don't know the feedback because there was a survey went out in say September, October. You know what I mean, of what clubs wanted. Felt of last season. So it's new to me, obviously, that format. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, so it's 12 teams this year, isn't it? I believe the ambition is to get back down to 10 over the next couple of years. So we'll see how they manage that. But
I think they put a thing out today, actually, an email out today, saying so it could be, right down to.
It could be a triple relegation this year.
Yes,
potentially.
Exactly. Yeah, could be.
I suppose it keeps the league interesting a little bit because sometimes you can end up, even with a 10-team league, you end up with a bit of a stale middle section that aren't competing, but too safe to get relegated. So I suppose at least.
Sure. Bit of jeopardy.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And I suppose you've got your second 11 are playing in Division 1 this year, I believe.
Yes. Aye, that's right. That was literally. And as I said, there'll be a good few young players. Some of the guys that you'll remember that would have been really small. Fred and Matthew and Ian Christie's fair come on, must be said. Settled down a bit, and of course he's cricket, powerful young man. Hits a hard ball. So yeah, a lot of good young players there. There'll be be a few older heads, a few guys that were in and out of the first team last year, played a lot of Strathmore Union cricket, so they'll be a decent side, I would think. Yeah,
I suppose a good thing for the club with having a second 11 in Division 1 is that you've kind of got a genuine second. You know, back when I was playing at Meigle, it was the ones, but then it was the second team was in the Sunday R&D stuff, and I mean it's just it's night and day playing in the NEC and the R&D.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd maybe even help attract players and keep players. So the gap, as you said, between Division 1 and Championship is obviously just a division, whereas even last year they were a division down, twos, and we were a division up. So it was quite a big gap there. But that was always, to be fair, one of personal Ian's sort of ambitions was to drag the twos up to make that gap smaller, to make it easier to bring guys up. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to see.
And is there an ambition to have a Sunday 11 moving forward as well, or are you sticking with 2 11s?
Well, no, there's 2 Saturday 11s, and then there's a Sunday team in the R&D.
Yeah, so that's there as well.
Yeah, we've got that. There's even, to be fair, even with like the midweek that you guys are in, that's even got some different players as well, which has been a good thing. It's filled a wee gap that I didn't, to be really honest, know was there, of players at the club who they don't want to give up a whole day of their weekend to go and play it, and if they're local to Perth, they just crack on down there and the games are over in an hour and a half, 2 hours. So that's been good to keep those guys involved as well. You know what I mean? Keep their hand in at cricket. A lot of father and sons play at that as well, I believe.
There are, yes, there are.
A lot of the teams, and that's been the case for us as well. So it's been really good keeping guys together. So midweek as well, yeah.
It's good to have the options for various abilities and
exactly,
as you say, as well, which I suppose maybe some clubs struggle with. So it's good to see that, you know, despite being a Perthshire village team, you're offering lots to people.
That's it, yeah.
And I suppose one of the things I think you wanted to talk about as a club was, in addition to the men's, or I suppose there are perhaps females playing on these teams, but traditionally seen as men's teams, I believe the clubs are also trying to grow the sort of women's and girls section. I don't know if you want to talk a bit about that.
Yeah. Well, just I mean, I don't know if everybody's doing it, but it's a way forward, isn't it? It's 50% of the cricket playing public as well that you're targeting. So initially it's we've got a bit of grant funding towards it, so try and run a few things, see where the interest is, see if we can drum up a bit on the adult female playing side of things, whether that be your wee bash or cricket and things like that, to start it off. As you said, everybody starts somewhere, and some clubs have started small and grown quite quickly. I think Ducat grew quite quickly, speaking of Jack, even last night at Mains, so that's good. But girls wise, I mean, we've had almost girls teams in the past, but they've always dwindled away through playing with boys. So if you can have a women's team to aim for, I think that'll help that as well. We've got quite a few girls at softball level at the moment. We're up at the wee bash in Aberdeen last weekend, 2 weekends ago. So we had 6 girls up there who are all good cricketers, and keeps them together, keeps them playing with each other. You know what I mean? Rather than being that one girl or 2 girls that are stuck in with the boys. You know, so they enjoy that a bit more. I think girls playing against girls is the way to keep it going. You know.
Yeah, gives them, as you say, that sort of camaraderie of their peers.
Yeah, team.
And I know, playing alongside your friends, it's not that boys and girls can't be friends, it's not what we're saying, but you know, obviously if they're going to school with another girl, that can help. I know there's been the odd youngster, even when I was at Meigle, that maybe because their friends had fallen by the wayside, they were considering giving up the game as well. So yeah, as you say, that's
the more of your friends that are playing, definitely, the more keen you'll be, and that's, I would say honestly, that's how a lot of the girls started. Was probably by, and as bad as lockdown is, was cricket was one of the things that you were allowed to do, cricket and golf in the summer. So definitely we were getting kids coming along because it was the only thing they could do. And by being there, and then they realised that, and they're playing with, you know what I mean, playing with their friends, just being with their friends for that hour and a half on a Wednesday night means that they're there. And then, as you said, some have grown to like it and love the sport and keep going. So all good from that.
Excellent. Sounds like things are expanding, which is great.
It is. That's what I'm saying. There's as many like playing members as well I've ever seen at Meigle. I don't know before me, maybe in the 50s and 60s. If there were, you know what I mean, with less stuff to do, there maybe was more playing members, but they wouldn't have had junior members in those days as well. So there's a good membership coming over, and so it'd be good having Raju and this young guy Hayden from coming over from Australia. He was in at Matt Farmer's club, a previous pro. So then Charles went over to play there in 2019, and he was going to come over in 2020. This other young guy, so just sort of a bit of a club link-up sort of thing, which was good. So he's waited for 2 years to come over, and still keen to come over. So feel kind of duty bound to give him that shot.
Oh well, here's hoping he performs for you then.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bonus sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? We kind of seen it more as at the time of having that link up. You know what I mean? Whereas maybe one or 2 hour guys would want to winter over there, and if one of their guys wants to winter over here, do you know what I mean?
I've seen that with other clubs and
benefit everyone. Yeah.
They end up with a tie-up through a pro or whatever, however it begins, and it can be beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of potluck as to how good they are or not, and if he's good, then great. If he's not, he'll be in the twos.
I was sort of thinking that. I was like, can they play? I couldn't remember if an army could drop down to the twos, or I can't remember what the rules are.
Yeah, true. I think it used to be quite difficult. But certainly a pro would have been difficult, but I think amateurs was quite reasonably flexible.
I'm sure as long as you could show it was reasonable to drop them on. Hopefully
that's it. Yeah. No, I'm sure he'll do all right.
12th man running drinks.
That's get him working. Well, I suppose obviously sounds like there's a lot going on, and on the field, and you talked about the aspirations for the club, you know, try and bounce back. But I suppose obviously overseas players withstanding, I suppose it's who do you think might get the most runs this year? Most wickets, these kind of things?
Yeah. Batting wise, could be anyone. Unless no, definitely not be me. Definitely not. I would probably say Alan Neve really came on with a bat in the last year and a half. Cricket wise, looks composed. We've been kind of looking for a number 3 for as long as I've come back from Meigle, to be fair. Whatever that was, 2009. And he just looks natural there, just a bit more mature, you know what I mean, knows his game a bit better, and he looked really good at times last year. So I would think that experience of last year, he would hopefully kick on this year, score some big runs for us, hopefully.
On the wicket taking side, who are you backing to take the most wickets?
Yeah, I suppose the easy way would be go one of the Rashid brothers, because they're the most dangerous, I would say, bowling wise. 2 really good additions that we got a couple of years back. But probably being the Strathie Union and being the captain, Clarkie will probably scoop it.
Mopping up the tail, is that what you're saying?
Exactly, mopping up tail. No. Implied a wee bit of that, but no. Well, I mean, I think he's won the Strathie Union once before. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, he's performed at that level before.
Exactly. He knows his way around that league. So yeah, I think if I was if I did have a fiver, I'd probably put it on him.
As a left arm dibbly doubler, I can, I'm happy with Clarkey doing well. I know he likes to make it rapid, but he's not. So
Variations, Callum.
Thinking about the younger members of the team, who's your pick for sort of a player to really break through this year and have the first really productive season at either the ones or the twos?
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, Josh would be your obvious candidate. But I mean, you could argue he broke through last year as well. He scored that 100 in the midweek league against Strathy, was unbelievable. So he's unlimited to how far he could go with the bat. Like
he seemed to
I've seen very few.
The big runs. He still seemed to have a few decent knocks even in the EPL last year.
He got a few 30s and 40s. He got 170 for Cali 17s. As well against in a day, and then played for us at night. 2020. But he probably is that. You forget he missed a year and a half really effectively there with COVID off. Probably the absolute key time of development in his game. Do you know what I mean? Because he's 17 now, so he's missed really from 15 to 16 and a half, which is pretty key. If I think back to myself, how much he improved year on year those years playing cricket. So he probably just needs more opportunities to fail, if that makes sense, to have more innings and not just be playing ones, you know what I mean, having that one a week where if you do fail it can impact on you, get those 2 or 3 knocks a week and learn your own game, learn your strengths and weaknesses. But he's got all the shots. A couple more than me.
Actually, a player that I suppose he might benefit from you being that one level down at this point of his development.
Maybe. I don't think he. I don't think that the pressure of that would have affected him. Do you know what I mean? He's one of those guys. He doesn't eat, breathe, and sleep cricket like some guys like I did at that age, sort of thing as well. So between it, if you were to say you're playing Carlton or you're playing Arbroath threes, do you know what I mean? I think you would see the difference. Just the boy bowling at him and tries to whack it as hard as he can most of the time, to be fair. Which is good, you know what I mean? You'll get guys I know you're going facing Mark Watt this week, do you know what I mean? And worrying about it and what you're going to do, and whereas I think he just gets on with it, you know.
I mean that's not an easy task to not overthink things. So that's
exactly.
That's exciting. It sounds like it's an exciting time. I would imagine. I struggle to see you guys not being up there when in the NEC stuff. Realistically, there are, as you say, some tougher or bigger clubs, not necessarily tougher clubs than what you went up against before. But I think you'll be there or therearound. I'd be shocked to see otherwise. You'd expect us to be up there right enough.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. Well, I think that's about everything. So I'd just like to wish you guys all the best for the season ahead. And hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to you during the season as well, and maybe have an update on how things are going. Thank you very much for joining us, Pete.
Yep. No problem. Hopefully we'll see you at some point on the playing field. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
See you later.
Thanks again, Pete, for joining us. We, as I said, wish Meigle all the best for the season ahead. Now,
as always,
Callum, what are we talking about next?
Well, I thought it was. I had the thought about we've just spoken to Pete from Meigle, who got relegated from the EPL last year, and it would be fair to say it was a sort of Pete kind of touched on it a bit. It's quite a big jump from the NEC or ESCA Premier, to the EPL, and it's one of the things that caused. I remember when it sort of first happened, the restructuring of the league, and they've effectively dropped. It's just gone on one joined up league, because unlike in the West, where the West they also have a 10-team Premier League, it's a 10-team first division, and the West is just the West.
Yeah, it doesn't split into two regions below the Premier Division.
And there seems to be a bit of gulf, and I suppose it's an interesting one because we on a previous podcast had a discussion about the English counties structure, and actually is there kind of too many teams weakening the pool a little bit. I suppose I kind of had an sort of similar idea on. I wonder whether in the East, because below the Premier it's two then leagues, is the pot too diluted, and should there therefore be a sort of going back to what used to be there and having like an Eastern Premier, an Eastern Division 1, and then at that point it splits. I'm not advocating in any way, shape or form that the Strathmore Union and ESCA should be joined all the way down through the ranks. So I think you'd had a bit of a look into whether my theory was just absolute nonsense or otherwise, as to, because I sort of have it in my head that the teams who are promoted, so for those who aren't aware, there's I was going to say the winners of the NEC, but the highest placed eligible team to be promoted from the Strathmore Union and the top ESCA league go into a playoff, and then the winner of the playoff gets promoted into the Eastern Premier League.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that they either go up and come back down like Meigle did, or even if they go up and they kind of struggle and seem to quite often remain struggling.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. So I looked at the league since it became the Eastern Premier. And obviously it was an 8-team league for the first two seasons, and then became a 10-team league in 2014. So if we take that as sort of our cut-off point, because it was Forfarshire and Falkland that came in the year that it became a 10-team league, and Forfarshire have done well. They've obviously won it in recent years as well.
Yep.
Falkland were 6th, 8th, and then 10th before they were relegated in 2017. Since then, though, so you had Corstorphine, who came up in 2014, were immediately relegated. Glenrothes came up in 2015, had a 9th place finish, and then a 5th, so they had one season where they sort of did okay.
We'll not talk about what that was.
And then they were relegated in 10th place the following year. Stumel promoted in 2016. In their 4 seasons, they finished 9th, and 8th. So they've struggled down the bottom end every year. Corstorphine promoted again in 2017. They finished 5th, and 7th. So they're sort of the exception, I think, really, in that they have sort of consolidated their place in the Eastern Premier League since they were promoted. Stonywood Dice in 2018, a 7th place and a 9th place finish, and then Meigle promoted in 2019 and then relegated in 10th place in 2021. So yeah, other than one club really that have sort of consolidated their position, the rest have either consistently struggled or been relegated in quite quick time. Yeah,
and it just, to me, I just kind of wonder, is it, if you had that middle ground of, because what you end up with is you end up that these guys are going from being big fish in small ponds to a very small fish in a very big pond. And whereas the Division 1 structure, I feel, allowed them to then grow and develop and maybe sort of sit and look at, well, actually, this is a good landing point for us. It might be a team. There's been a few teams over the years where they've had kind of young squads, and the reality of it is going up. And we've had some teams that have actually refused promotion or even to go into the playoff because they feel that their squad isn't ready for that mammoth jump into the Premier League. Whereas if there's a Division 1, I think that would be quite different at that point. I think you would have just a landing place for these teams to go, right, well, okay, it gives us time to reconsolidate, allow these guys who are maybe good 17, 18, 19-year-old players to become very good 20, 21, 22-year-olds. And they've still got more growth to go and things like that.
Would you allow second teams?
No, I would.
In it?
I would, and I think probably the slight thing that you'd probably find is that actually all that would happen is your NEC and your top ESCA league would probably just more or less entirely be second teams on that basis, just because they tend to be the biggest clubs, and that's fair enough.
Does that not then produce a sort of bigger gap for club? I'm just thinking from a club's perspective. So in the West, there are second 11s in the first division, are there? There are not.
No, the first division, the Premier Division are purely first teams.
Right, okay.
And then they've got 2 Saturday divisions below that, and there's also, and then I think they've got a Premier Reserve division as well that's exclusively for
right, okay.
those teams.
So I'm just thinking from a Grange perspective, or a big Edinburgh club, or even a Forfarshire, for example, who have got a second 11 in the SPCU North East Championship.
Yeah.
I suppose their concern would be that the players that are on the cusp of their first team are then playing a much reduced standard of cricket from what they would be previously, because it's a sort of North East Championship stroke Division 1 standard that they would be dropping to.
Yeah, I can slightly, I can see that slight argument, although to be fair, a lot of these teams quite heavily are already dominated by second 11 teams. For NEC slightly different because there's been a few newer teams have come in recent years. It's maybe, well, the league this year is 12 teams. So
yeah,
it's a slightly different situation there. And yeah, I don't know whether the answer around that is, do you have something similar to the West and you have a Premier Reserve League that maybe in each league could have that? You know, you could have an SPCU Reserve League and you actually pull those teams out of it. The problem you got is that there are a lot of decent clubs who don't have a decent second 11 as well. That's already a problem. That and to me, I'm not actually convinced how much you'd be weakening, particularly the NEC and the top ESCA league. I think what you'd actually be doing is hopefully giving these other clubs room to grow.
Yep.
And sort of cement themselves, and rather than playing the second 11s from the bigger teams, you've maybe got 4 SPCU teams or 5 playing against 4 or 5 ESCA teams, and hopefully strengthening those positions. With, as I say, still trying to drive it actually that hopefully by doing that you'd have teams that are competitive when they get promoted. And I do think that, I know the West have got 20 teams. I do wonder if 20 is too much. I do wonder if it would be better returning back to the 2 leagues of 8. Another advantage to going back to the 2 leagues of 8, where you're actually only pulling 6 teams out of the current leagues that are already there.
But do you just produce another gap? So does this problem then just slide to the bottom of the first division? Particularly if your regional league is then so second 11 dominated.
Yeah, I suppose. And I can see where that argument comes in. You might end up in a situation though where, I mean, these guys are still going to have to work their way through leagues with the second 11s from the big clubs. Yeah. And you would sort of go, well, is there a massive standard difference between them?
Yeah, I suppose for is the 16th team in the East any better than a big club's second 11? It's a valid argument, you would say.
I mean, there has been a lot of years where there have been plenty of years where there's been a good second 11 team who just can't go forward, so it then has to be somebody else. I've not pulled up the exact stats on that, but I certainly remember as a youngster, for example, that like Mannifield, which was Aberdeenshire's teams, were a very strong team in the SPCU, for example, and things like that. So I don't think you'd be hopefully creating too big a gap. You're always going to have a jump, and I'm not saying that you should ever try and create two leagues where the standards are the same, and it's
Yeah,
almost
no,
interchangeable.
absolutely.
That to me is almost just becoming like a sort of American conference style thing that I don't think's good, and personally, but yeah, I just think that there is an awful big jump. And are you also, it's not to try and pick on a club, but you look at a club like Stu Mel, who have consistently been in the since they re-entered the league, have consistently been in that relegation position.
Well, since 2012, they've had 6 seasons in the Eastern Premier and had a top finish of 8th. So
yeah, and you just sort of look at a club like that and go, well, okay, presumably you're too good for the league below, but you're not quite good enough. And where's the growth? If you have an 8 and an 8, does that allow a Stu Mel to actually develop themselves into, even if they yo-yoed a wee bit, they're still hopefully strengthening, whereas perhaps dropping back into the top regional league doesn't actually allow them that level of growth. I don't see your only real level of growth to me that's going to come is that players might get older. And I look at, if you take Meigle as the example, I don't see how they drop down from the EPL into the SPCU and, to be quite honest, grow as a team. And grow into better players, because I just don't see the standard difference to me is just too large. And yeah, Pete did touch on that. There is it appears to be a stronger SPCU than maybe there has been historically. Maybe in club stature, it's a better league. I don't know if I would personally agree it's a better league than there has been.
In terms of the standard of the cricket being played.
Yeah, of the cricket being played. I'm sure some clubs might not like me saying that, but I do think that's the honest case. And I think that, if Meigle go straight back up, they're kind of just facing the same issues of that they're just 2 years on from where they are, and their only real growth is going to continue happening by playing against, against the EPL teams. And it's not even like in Edinburgh they've got the Masterton Trophy for the 2020 stuff midweek, where you do get some of the slightly smaller clubs are getting exposure to the bigger teams. And I know there is the national T20, or I can't remember what, since that named sponsor got dropped. But even that, there's not a lot of exposure. It was groups of 3 last year.
And I suppose, in the case that you saw, it only highlighted the massive gap between
it did.
the clubs as well. But
that was a top team against, let's be honest, not a top NEC team. So it's, you want it to be an exposure that's helping to develop the game. And I think just now, NEC going up against EPL, especially the top half of the EPL, or probably the top 2/3, because I'd say there is that jump. It's probably a sort of top 6. So it's just, that's my feeling, is that it would be better to have a Division 1 as a stepping stone. And I think, some of the big clubs do look at what impact would that have on their second 11, and while I do understand that, I also don't think we can base developing the game based on what impact that has on second 11s. I think you really have to focus on clubs' first team cricket, and that doesn't mean that EPL teams as the biggest clubs should be the entire focus of it. At the end of the day, my proposition is, the top 6, this doesn't affect them. They don't really care less. If anything, I suppose where it affects them is there's a better chance of them getting relegated, because rather than potentially it being 10th, it might go to being 8th to get relegated.
Yeah.
But to me, for a growth of the game, that to me appears to be a better idea, to get more teams playing against better standards. there are practicality issues. You're exposing 16 teams to having to travel across quite a large region. You have, I don't know, Kelso or so, there's teams down in the borders that could, in theory, find themselves in Division 1 and
alongside Aberdeenshire, for instance.
Yeah. So, but I suppose that's then up to a club as to what do they want to do? Because at the end of the day, they could not take promotion if they don't want to, because it would be the current situation now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just think that there's just a bit of a gap, and I think to me, it can only be to the betterment of Scottish cricket for more higher standard, but also competitive cricket going on. I don't see the point currently in, given that this is sort of where, because of the lack of regional cricket that's going on in Scotland, the club stuff is still a large feeder for the international game. And I don't see the value in having the top 6 teams in the EPL sort of consistently minnow bashing for a third of the season. I just don't. I don't see who that's to the benefit of. So yeah, that's why I personally think there should be go back to 2 divisions. I've probably not thought long and hard enough about it to say whether that should be 8 or 10, but
I think I like the top division being 10, maybe a second division of 8 though. But I mean, that then means you're pulling in an extra 8 sides into the national setup, which I don't know. I think it's probably manageable, but it's whether there's a want. But you would hope that clubs would want to do it to benefit their development. Ultimately, all these clubs should be aspiring to be playing at the top level.
Well, I remember being in and around. It would it have been Ducat at that point? Can't remember. It was either still Strathern or it might have just become Ducat Cricket Club at that point. And I remember the sort of a sense of when this got announced, it was like, for us to now get into the National League, it's that even bit much harder.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, and to me, as I say, it's not been seen to be a way to make it easier for clubs to get into the National League. Okay, part of it is. That is just a byproduct of it. But to me, it's about bettering the standard of the game.
Yeah.
To do it. But I think it would be interesting to hear people's thoughts on Twitter, on YouTube.
Get us on Twitter at dib.pod, or find us or comment. Make your way into the comments on YouTube, or try and spit that sentence out. It's late.
It's late. As always.
Indeed.
So kind of let us know, do you like the way that the setup works just now? Would you like to see it return to 2 divisions in the East? Or do you have another suggestion altogether? Or even if you have a thought on the regional leagues, does the NEC work? Does the top ESCA league work? Could they be changed to do something else to strengthen the game? It'd be good to hear people's thoughts on that. Yeah.
And we've got another interview coming up next week. I think our interview on next week's episode will be with Perth Ducat, and then Glenrothes the week after that. So loads more SPCU focused content coming up over the next couple of weeks, and we hope to see you again for that.
Yeah, cheers for joining us, everyone.
Bye.